Sarah Chen's magnetic mop made a soft humming sound as she guided it across the polished floors of Lab 7, her movements precise and practiced after 3 years of maintaining the pristine corridors of the Galactic Defense Research Institute. The late shift suited her, fewer sneers from the alien scientists, fewer whispered comments about humanity's primitive nature. Most importantly, fewer distractions from her observations. The mop's quantum filtration system pulsed with a gentle blue glow, collecting subatomic particles that even the most advanced scanning systems might miss. Sarah had modified it herself, much to the amusement of the maintenance supervisor. Humans, he had chittered through his mandibles, always tinkering with perfectly good equipment. But Sarah knew better. Every night, as she cleaned the aftermath of failed weapons tests and botched experiments, her modified equipment collected data. Tonight was different, though. As she approached the corner where Project Thunderhead had spectacularly failed that morning, her mop's handle began to vibrate in an unusual pattern. "That's new," she muttered, adjusting her glasses to study the readout on the handle's small display. The quantum resonance patterns were unlike anything she'd seen before, a complex dance of particles that seemed to respond to the mop's standard cleaning frequency. "What are you doing in here?" The sharp voice made Sarah jump. Dr. Zex Lee, the project lead for Thunderhead, stood in the doorway, his crystalline form reflecting the lab's harsh lighting. "This section is restricted until the failure analysis is complete." Sarah straightened, keeping her grip firm on the mop. "Standard post-experiment cleanup, sir. Environmental regulations require dash." "Regulations?" Zexley's crystalline features arranged themselves into what Sarah had learned was their species' equivalent of a smirk. "A human lecturing me about regulations? I've reviewed your application for the research assistant position 6 times, Chen. Cleaning equipment doesn't qualify as scientific experience." Sarah bit back her response, but couldn't entirely hide her smile. "Of course, sir. Though I notice you've been having trouble with the quantum field harmonics in the containment systems." Zexley's form briefly clouded with surprise before hardening. "And how exactly would you know anything about our containment systems?" Sarah gestured to her mop. "The residual energy patterns. They're showing a distinct resonance cascade that dash." "Enough." Zexley's voice crackled like breaking glass. "Get out. I'll have a word with your supervisor about overstepping boundaries." As Sarah backed out of the lab, she caught one last glimpse of her mop's display. The pattern was still there, pulsing with potential. She'd have to work faster now. She recognized that resonance from her studies, from the theoretical papers she read during lunch breaks and the simulations she ran on her personal quantum tablet. The aliens might see her as just a janitor, but Sarah Chen had spent 3 years cleaning up after failed experiments, studying patterns that the researchers were too proud to notice. She knew she'd seen something important in that lab. Something that could change everything. Back in her tiny maintenance office, Sarah connected her mop's data core to her tablet. As the numbers scrolled across her screen, her hands began to shake with excitement. The resonance pattern wasn't just unusual, it was exactly what the weapons researchers had been trying to achieve for years. The solution was literally under their feet, she whispered, beginning to sketch out calculations. They just couldn't see it because they were too busy looking down on the cleaning staff. A soft chime from her tablet interrupted her work, a rejection notification for her 7th research assistant application. Sarah closed it without reading it, her focus entirely on the data before her. Let them reject her. Let them laugh. The basement storage room of the Galactic Defense Research Institute wasn't meant to be a laboratory. The space between cleaning supplies and spare parts hardly qualified as a proper research environment, but Sarah Chen had learned to make do with what she had. Her modified cleaning equipment, arranged in precise patterns across the floor, hummed with purpose in the dim light. "Come on, show me what you did last time," she murmured, adjusting the quantum harmonics on her central mop unit. The readouts from her tablet cast a blue glow across her face as she monitored the energy patterns. 3 weeks had passed since her discovery in Lab 7, and she'd spent every free moment trying to replicate and understand the resonance cascade she'd observed. A shadow fell across her makeshift workstation. Sarah's heart stopped, she'd been caught. But when she looked up, she found herself staring not at security or her supervisor, but at Dr. Tall, the Institute's resident expert in quantum field theory. The Arcturian scientist's tentacles were curled in what Sarah recognized as an expression of intense curiosity. Fascinating, Dr. Tall's translation module hummed. You've modified standard cleaning equipment to measure quantum field fluctuations. But why arrange them in this particular geometric pattern? Sarah stood quickly, nearly knocking over one of her carefully positioned mops. Dr. Tall, I can explain. Please do, the scientist interrupted, all 4 eyes focused on her tablet's display. These readings, they're remarkably similar to the theoretical models I've been working on for stabilized energy projection. Sarah hesitated, then made a decision. She'd already been caught, might as well take the chance. That's because they're based on your papers, Doctor. Your work on harmonic resonance in quantum fields. I think I've found a practical application. One of Tall's tentacles reached out to adjust the angle of a cleaning unit. You've read my research. Every paper you've published in the last 5 years, Sarah admitted. I particularly enjoyed your theoretical framework for quantum wave harmonization, though I think you may have overlooked something in the practical application. Instead of the dismissal she expected, Tall's skin shifted to a deep blue of intellectual excitement. Show me. For the next 2 hours, Sarah explained her theory. How the standard quantum filtration in cleaning equipment operated on frequencies that could, with modification, generate the exact resonance patterns weapons researchers had been trying to achieve. How the failed Thunderhead project had accidentally created the perfect conditions for her discovery. How she'd been testing and refining her ideas in secret. Remarkable, Tall said finally, examining Sarah's data. And you developed all of this while working as maintenance staff. No one pays attention to the cleaning crew, Sarah said with a slight smile. It's amazing what you can learn when people think you're invisible. Indeed. Tall's tentacles writhed in thought. You realize, of course, that if these readings are correct, you've not only solved the containment problem that's plagued our weapons research for decades, you've discovered an entirely new approach to quantum field manipulation. Sarah nodded. But no one will listen to a human janitor. Perhaps not, Tall agreed. But they will listen to me. And I'm telling you that you don't belong in the maintenance department, Ms. Chen. You belong in my research team. Before Sarah could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red emergency lights cast strange shadows across her improvised lab as the Institute's AI made an announcement that chilled her blood. Alert! Void collective vessels detected entering system. This is not a drill. All research personnel report to emergency stations. Tall's skin paled to a sickly gray. The Void collective? Here. But our defense systems aren't ready, the containment fields are still unstable. Sarah looked at her array of modified cleaning equipment, then at her tablet displaying the successful test results. Maybe not all of them, she said quietly. Doctor, I need you to help me get access to Lab 7. I have an idea, but we'll have to move fast. Tall's eyes narrowed as understanding dawned. You want to adapt your discovery for immediate deployment? That's incredibly risky. The testing alone. We don't have time for proper testing, Sarah interrupted, already beginning to pack up her equipment. The Void Collective isn't going to wait for peer review. After a moment's hesitation, Tall's tentacles curled in determination. Very well. But if we're going to commit career suicide by turning cleaning equipment into weapons of war, we should at least do it properly. I have access to the quantum engineering lab, we can calibrate your devices there. As they hurried through the increasingly chaotic corridors of the Institute, Sarah couldn't help but smile grimly. She'd wanted recognition for her work, but not like this. Still, as the evacuation sirens wailed and the first distant flashes of orbital combat lit up the sky, she knew one thing for certain. The quantum engineering lab erupted in chaos as Sarah and Dr. Tall burst through the doors, pushing a cart loaded with modified cleaning equipment. Scientists of various species scrambled between workstations, their voices a cacophony of panic and urgent status reports. "The Void Collective's primary vessel has breached our outer defense grid," announced a holographic display showing the battle in orbit. Conventional weapons reporting zero effect on their shields. Dr. Zexley's crystalline form shimmered with stress as he coordinated the emergency response. "Where are those containment field calculations?" "We need dash," he stopped mid-sentence, eyes fixing on Sarah. "What is the maintenance worker doing here? This is a secure facility." "She's here on my authority," Tall said, already connecting Sarah's equipment to the lab's primary power grid. "And she may have our only chance at stopping the Void Collective." "Have you lost your mind?" Zexley's voice cracked with incredulity. "This is not the time for jokes, Tall. We have minutes, perhaps hours before dash." The building shook violently, cutting him off. Through the lab's reinforced windows, they could see the sky turning an unnatural purple as the Void Collective's weapons began tearing through the atmosphere. "Exactly," Sarah said, fingers flying across her tablet as she calibrated her devices. "We have minutes. So you can either keep arguing about my qualifications, or you can help me save this facility." She looked up, meeting Zexley's gaze. "Your choice, Doctor." For a moment, the lab fell silent except for the wail of alarms and the hum of Sarah's equipment. Then Tall spoke, tentacles gesturing at the data displays. "Look at these readings, Zexley. The quantum resonance pattern she's discovered, it's exactly what we've been trying to achieve with Project Thunderhead." "Impossible," Zexley moved closer, his crystalline structure refracting light as he studied the displays. "These patterns, how did you—" "I paid attention," Sarah said simply, continuing her work. "Every failed test, every cleanup operation, the residual energy signatures were trying to tell us something. We were forcing the quantum fields into alignment and we should have been harmonizing with their natural frequencies." She gestured to her modified cleaning units. "These are designed to work with quantum fields, not against them. That's why they can generate stable containment patterns." Another explosion rocked the building, closer this time. The lab's shields flickered ominously. "Even if you're right," Zexley said, his tone less dismissive now, "we have no time to test and implement a new weapon system. The Void ships will be within striking distance of the planet's surface in less than 20 minutes. "We don't need 20 minutes, Tall interjected, his tentacles moving rapidly between control panels. "Sarah's equipment is already calibrated. We just need to scale up the resonance field and dash." The lab's power suddenly cut out, plunging them into darkness before emergency systems kicked in. Sarah's modified cleaning units, however, continued their steady hum. "Main reactors gone," someone shouted. "We're on backup power only." Sarah looked at her equipment, then at Tall. "The quantum tap from my cleaning units, if we reverse the flow. We could power the entire defense grid," Tall finished, his skin glowing with excitement. "But the feedback would destroy your equipment. All your research will mean nothing if we're all dead," Sarah said firmly. She turned to Zexley. "I need command access to the defense grid. Now." Zexley hesitated for just a moment before his crystalline form shifted, creating an access terminal. "If you're wrong about this." "I'm not." Sarah began the power transfer sequence, watching as her years of secret research and careful modifications began to overload. "Dr. Tall, I need you to modulate the quantum field harmonics. Match them exactly to the frequency I showed you in the basement." Tall moved to comply, but suddenly jerked back as a power surge arced through the lab's systems. "The containment field is becoming unstable. We need to dash." "No." Sarah rushed to the controls, her hands moving with the same precise confidence she'd once used to clean these very floors. "That's exactly what we want. Trust me." The air itself seemed to vibrate as Sarah's makeshift weapon system came online. Through the lab windows, they could see the purple light of the Void Collective's weapons being met by a new force, a rippling wave of energy that moved like water but hit like a tsunami. "By all the stars," Zexley whispered, watching as the energy wave engulfed the first of the Void ships. "It's working. The resonance cascade it's actually working." Sarah didn't respond, too focused on maintaining the delicate balance of energies. Her cleaning units were burning out one by one, sacrificing themselves to power humanity's last line of defense. In the sky above, the Void ships began to fall, their supposedly impenetrable shields shattered by the very quantum forces they had once commanded. As the last of her equipment gave out in a shower of sparks, Sarah finally allowed herself to smile. "Not bad for a maintenance worker, wouldn't you say?" The lab erupted in cheers, but Sarah barely heard them. Her eyes were fixed on her tablet, recording every bit of data from her dying equipment. She'd saved the facility, possibly the planet, but her work was just beginning. After all, someone would have to clean up after this mess. 2 weeks after the Void Collective's defeat, Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Defense Council, her former cleaning uniform replaced by the formal attire of a senior researcher. The council chamber's vast dome displayed a real-time hologram of ongoing repairs to the orbital defense network, now being retrofitted with what the media had dubbed Chen Field technology. To summarize, Sarah concluded her presentation, hands steady as she manipulated the holographic display. "The resonance cascade effect can be implemented across all existing defense systems with minimal modification. The key is working with quantum fields rather than trying to dominate them." Admiral Vexthor, a towering Mantodine whose chitinous armor bore the scars of countless battles, leaned forward. "You're telling us that the most significant breakthrough in defensive technology in the last century was developed using cleaning equipment?" "Technically, sir, I developed it by observing how cleaning equipment interacted with quantum fields," Sarah corrected politely. "The principles were always there, we just needed to look at them from a different perspective. A perspective that none of our most brilliant scientists managed to find," noted Counselor Yith, her luminescent form pulsing with what Sarah had learned was amusement. "Perhaps we should make janitorial service a requirement for all research positions." A ripple of laughter moved through the chamber, but it wasn't the mocking kind Sarah had grown used to. This was different, appreciative, almost admiring. Still, she noticed some of the senior scientists shifting uncomfortably in their seats. "The practical applications extend far beyond defense," Dr. Tall added from his position beside her. The Arcturian scientist had become her strongest advocate in the academic community. "Sarah's understanding of quantum field harmonics has implications for everything from energy production to waste management." Speaking of waste management, Sarah activated a new hologram, showing a modified version of her original cleaning unit. "I've been working on adapting the technology for peaceful applications. This prototype can neutralize radiation in contaminated zones by harmonizing with and gradually dissipating harmful quantum states." The chamber erupted in excited murmurs. Sarah caught Dr. Zexley, now her nominal subordinate in the Weapons Research Division, nodding appreciatively. Their relationship had improved considerably since she'd saved the Institute, though she occasionally caught him staring at her cleaning cart-turned-weapon platform with a mixture of awe and embarrassment. "Ms. Chen," Admiral Vexthor's voice cut through the chatter. "The Galactic Defense Council has reviewed your full proposal. The scale of implementation you're suggesting would require unprecedented cooperation between species and sectors." Sarah straightened her shoulders. "Yes, sir. That's exactly the point." "Explain." "The Void Collective almost won because we were all working separately, convinced our own approaches were superior," Sarah said, thinking of all the times she'd watched different research teams refuse to share data. "But quantum fields don't care about species or status. They respond to harmony, in the literal physical sense, yes, but also in how we approach them. She gestured to the hologram of the destroyed void ships. We won because we finally stopped fighting against each other and against nature itself. My cleaning equipment worked because it was designed to work with quantum fields, not control them. If we apply that same principle on a galactic scale, we could revolutionize everything from defense to infrastructure, Counselor Yith finished, her glow brightening with excitement. Precisely. Sarah brought up her final display, a proposal for what she called the Harmonic Integration Network. We start with defense systems, yes, but this technology could form the foundation of a new kind of galactic cooperation. After all, she allowed herself a small smile, someone needs to clean up the mess we've made of space. The joke landed perfectly. Even Admiral Vexthor's mandibles clicked in amusement. Very well, Ms. Chen, the Admiral said after consulting with his colleagues. The Council approves your proposal for full implementation. We'll begin with the core worlds and expand outward. Dr. Tal will assist you in establishing the new Quantum Harmonics Division. Thank you, Admiral, but I have one condition, Sarah said, causing several council members to raise their various appendages in surprise. I want my entire maintenance team involved in the project. The cleaning staff, someone asked incredulously. They understand practical quantum field manipulation better than most physicists, Sarah explained. They've been doing it every day, even if they didn't know it. Plus, she added with just a touch of her old defiance, I think we've established that good ideas can come from unexpected places. The council chambers filled with approving murmurs and gestures. As Sarah looked around at the assembled leaders of galactic civilization, she caught sight of her reflection in one of the chamber's crystalline walls. The same face that had been ignored in countless corridors was now at the center of attention, but she hadn't changed. The universe had simply finally started paying attention. One more thing, she said, bringing up a final hologram, a design for a new type of ship. I think it's time we stop just playing defense. I have some ideas about how we might take our breakthrough to the stars. 5 years after the Void Collective's defeat, Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the Harmonic Integration Network's flagship, the CSS Custodian. Below her, a massive quantum harmonics array was assembling itself in orbit around a dying star, its intricate patterns reminiscent of the geometric arrangements she'd once created with cleaning equipment in a basement storage room. The stellar stabilization process is at 98% completion, Director Chen reported captainly, her former maintenance supervisor who turned out to have an unexpected talent for Starship Command. The star's quantum field matrix is responding exactly as your models predicted. Sarah nodded, watching as the angry red giant slowly shifted to a healthier yellow hue. What had started as a weapons breakthrough had evolved into something far more profound. Her understanding of quantum field harmonics wasn't just saving worlds from military threats, it was saving them from natural disasters, environmental catastrophes, and the ravages of time itself. Director, Tal's familiar voice came from behind her. The Arcturian scientist, now her chief of research and development, approached with his skin shifting through excited color patterns. The latest data from the Galactic Science Academy just came in. They're calling it the Chen Revolution in physics. Your theories about quantum harmony are being integrated into everything from basic education to advanced stellar engineering. Sarah smiled, remembering the days when she'd had to hide her scientific knowledge. And how are the new integrated research teams working out? Brilliantly, Tal's tentacles gestured enthusiastically at his datapad. The combination of theoretical physicists and maintenance personnel continues to yield unexpected insights. Just last week, a former waste management specialist from Betelgeuse 7 discovered a new application of harmonic fields for toxic waste neutralization. Speaking of unexpected insights, a crystalline voice added, and Sarah turned to see Dr. Zex Lee entering the observation deck. The once arrogant scientist had become one of her most valuable collaborators, his initial skepticism transformed into a driving desire to challenge conventional wisdom. The first graduating class of the Chen Institute of Practical Physics is ready for their field assignments. Sarah's chest tightened with pride. The institute had been her personal project, a place where anyone, regardless of species or background, could study the practical applications of quantum physics. The entrance requirements focused on problem-solving ability and observational skills rather than traditional academic credentials. The Void Collective remnants sent another peace delegation, Captain Lee reported, checking his communications panel. They're particularly interested in your proposal for converting their remaining warships into stellar maintenance vessels. From weapons of war to tools of preservation, Sarah mused, watching as the stabilized star began to pulse with healthy rhythms. Somehow fitting, don't you think? A soft chime indicated an incoming priority transmission. The observation deck's holographic display activated, showing Admiral Vexthor's battle-scarred visage. Director Chen, the Admiral's mandibles clicked in what she now recognized as their equivalent of a warm smile. The Defense Council has reviewed your proposal for the Galactic Harmony Initiative. It's unprecedented, combining military defense, environmental restoration, and technological advancement under a single unified framework. Sarah held her breath. This was her most ambitious project yet, an attempt to fundamentally reshape how civilizations approached both conflict and cooperation. We approve, the Admiral declared. Full funding and support, effective immediately. The Council agrees, it's time to clean up more than just our weapons systems. As celebrations erupted around her, Sarah moved closer to the observation window. Below, the quantum harmonics array continued its work, its patterns reminding her of the simple cleaning equipment that had started it all. She pulled out her old tablet, the same one she'd used to record her first discoveries, and began sketching new ideas. What's next? Tal asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. Sarah looked up at the stars, not just the one they were saving, but the countless others waiting to be helped, healed, or harmonized. You know what they say in maintenance, she replied with a grin. The work's never really done. There's always something else that needs cleaning up. The tablet in her hands filled with new calculations as ideas flowed. Perhaps the next breakthrough would come from a cook noticing patterns in quantum food preservation, or a gardener observing something unusual in their hydroponic fields. After all, she thought, true revolution rarely came from where you expected it. In the distance, the saved star pulsed with renewed life, its light carrying the promise of harmony to countless worlds. And in its glow, Sarah Chen, former janitor, current director, and eternal innovator, continued to work, knowing that sometimes the most powerful changes began with the simple act of paying attention to what everyone else overlooked. As the CSS custodian prepared to move to its next mission, Sarah made a final note on her tablet: proposal, integration of maintenance protocols into basic physics curriculum. Note, include section on proper quantum mop handling. She smiled. Some habits died hard, and some never should. The galaxy had learned its lesson. No one was laughing at the maintenance workers anymore, they were too busy learning from them.